Episode 5 of the Buck Up podcast, just going to be me for this one. I want to talk about how I've lost almost 60 pounds. Before we get going, I just want to make a quick reminder that there's really no limitations on what we're going to talk about on this podcast. While the Buck Hut name might be deceiving, because it is an outdoor focus, that's one of my main interests, hobbies. It's not really limited to anything. It's the Buck Hut is the story of my life, basically. And that's a place where a lot of conversations about life have taken place for me. So I want to honor it in that way. Going to apologize ahead of time since it's just me. There's no filter. I cuss a lot. And there's a reason I check the Not for Kids box every time I make these videos. So anyways, to get started, I got a whole list of notes here that I'm going to keep glancing over at just to keep me on track. So September 5th, I started this whole weight loss journey at 232 pounds. Didn't get a body scan or any of that stuff done, but I'm gonna guess I was in like the 35 to 40% body fat percentage, which is grossly obese. So, which I've always been kind of thicker, but in good shape. Like played sports and stuff growing up. I'd kind of always eaten the same into my adult life. I'd never really considered what I was putting into my body. So anyways, after I graduated college, I decided it was time that I was going to get back into shape. I was working 3/12, so I had several days off during the week. And so I had plenty of time to devote to it. So I remember the first time I started exercising after I graduated college. It was pretty brutal. I remember one time specifically, I think it was the last time I worked out after failing the first time. I pretty much ate an entire bag of Hershey's drops and then decided I was going to go for a run that morning. I ran the steepest hill I've ever ran in my life in the state park here in Troy. Ran it uphill, and I got to the top and threw up on the side of the road. And it was one of the first days that it was starting to get hot outside. It was probably like 85 degrees that day. And I was dehydrated. I brought no water with me. I just sat there on the side of the road, and a police officer had to come pick me up and drive me back to my truck. So I was extremely humiliated from that. And that kind of stuck with me for a few weeks after that. So then, carrying on throughout the summer of 2021, I kind of just put losing weight on the back burner. I finally had the time to go, fishing every day like I had been wanting to. So I spent a lot of time out on the boat with my dad, got into catfishing. We had a great time doing that this summer. Found a little honey hole, and we just hit the hell out of that every chance we got. Really one of the best summers of my life, honestly. But one of the downsides, pretty much the entire month of, I want to say end of June and all of July, I had some what I consider kind of serious health problems. I've never really spoken out about this to anyone. I think the only people that know are my immediate family. But I started having like heart palpitations every day, all day long. When I tried to lay down to go to sleep at night, I was still having them. And it lasted about 2 months. Finally got into a doctor after, it's kind of ridiculous. And I can probably give my thoughts on the healthcare system on another one of these, preferably with someone else, bounce some ideas off of. But it's a fucking joke. Made an appointment, and it took a month to fucking get into while I'm having heart issues at 21 years old. And then when I get there, by the time I finally get to go to the appointment, they had stopped. So he basically told me there's nothing wrong with me, and wanted to set up 9 other fucking appointments for me to go to, and he wasn't really gonna fucking do anything for me. So I canceled every single one of those motherfuckers, and just got real with myself about I'm literally gonna have to do this on my own, because our healthcare system's so fucked that the only way that I'm gonna be able to fix this is by myself. So then I had been churning on that for several weeks, and we'd gotten into the end of August, early September, and I started watching YouTube videos of Western mountain hunters, basically guys like Brian Call with Gritty Films. He's probably one of my favorites, just because of the quality of his production. Uh, Stephen Ranello on Meat Eater, he travels all over the world doing all kinds of different hunts. Most of them pretty physical. Aaron Snyder, started listening to Kafaru Cast. Really, I mean, he's probably one of the toughest guys doing it, just because he's doing a lot of public land and hard way, and I really love his grit stories. He's really messed up his body out there, just in the pursuit of the animal. So I really respect that. And I just kind of thought to myself, man, I love the outdoors. Like, I really want to do what these guys are doing. Um, so yeah, I started thinking, man, how the hell am I going to do this? I tried running a hill and threw up. How am I going to spend days hiking and sweating and have very limited resources and do what these guys are doing if I can't run up a hill? So originally I told myself that, okay, I probably need to lose like 15 pounds. So I told Dylan what I was getting into and how I really want to start doing, some of these out of state hunts and stuff. He said, okay. I kind of told him about my physical concern about I probably need to drop some weight if I'm going to be doing this. And that point, Dylan had lost well over 100 pounds. I don't know the number exactly. But yeah, so I basically asked him to help me get going. So one night at work, he drew up a whole nutrition plan for me. Basically, we originally started on about I think it was about 2,000 calories. And it was basically just a high protein, high fat diet. About 50 carbs a day, and it wasn't. We weren't necessarily considering it a ketogenic diet because it kind of like the carbs weren't real specific. The focus was mainly just getting my body into getting used to taking in more fat. That way I could be able to switch into a more ketogenic based diet afterward, after my body had become a little more fat adapted. So yeah, I started that, and the only day I hit that number was day one for my caloric intake, which I'll get into a little bit more here in a second. Food I was eating, I had sausage and eggs pretty much every day. Breakfast, I'd put a lot of times I put salsa on the eggs. Yeah, and then I'd have pepperoni, plain bacon cheeseburgers, shredded chicken or like chicken fajitas with queso on them. And then kind of my sugar was banana, and the banana was like ice cream to me at that point because I was pretty much kicking my 20 plus year long sugar addiction. So that was something I really enjoyed that wasn't too terrible for me. But pretty shortly after I had started, I just had a complete loss of appetite. There were several things I didn't really respond well to. I was trying to take some protein supplements and a few things like that. And they just really messed up my gut, and they would kill my appetite after that. I think I don't really know if it was the powders necessarily or what I was putting them in. I know on certain ones I was using, it was definitely the powders because I was just putting them in water. But like chocolatey type ones, I would put in almond milk. It's a little thicker, tasted better in my opinion. But yeah, they just all messed up my gut. So I completely kicked all the supplements and just went strictly to whole foods. So yeah, that had me fall pretty low on calories, and this number is probably going to sound pretty crazy for a guy my size because I'm 6'1" and I was around 230 pounds. When this appetite fell, I might have lost 5 pounds at that point, but really I was still a pretty big dude. Yeah, I was only eating like 1,200 to 1,400 calories a day, and that was consistently every day for probably 2 to 3 months. And like some nights, the hunger would kick in, and my spikes would be like 2,000 to 2,200. Which, if you know anything about caloric intake for men, even those spikes are still pretty low. Like I've heard some doctors say if you were in a coma, you'd burn through 2,300 calories a day as a guy my size. So yeah, I don't necessarily know. It's probably not the best thing, but once my body had kicked into that fat burning state, uh, I think it realized it had a lot of fat there that my appetite had slowed down, and then eventually once that was pretty consistent, I'm sure my stomach and other parts of my body had shrunk. So I've heard that happens too. I don't really know. I didn't really attack this from a science-based standpoint. I kind of really wasn't too concerned about killing myself because I figured I didn't really have much to lose. My heart was already messing up on me, and so I was just gonna give it a shot. I mean, I didn't really have a lot to lose. Um, but yeah, just make sure I didn't miss anything on that first page. Okay. So yeah, that was pretty consistent. I got to the end. I think it was about the end of November. It might have been very beginning of December. I wanted to start. I'd planned after deer season. I wanted to start the Andy Frisella's 75 Hard program. But I knew as much as I deer hunted this year, which I'm very thankful for. But I knew there was no way I was going to be able to commit to that. And a lot of people, Dylan and I talked about this on the podcast I did with him, that the best way to jump into something is not set a date like that. Just get right into it and force yourself to commit to it. But what I did realize was there's some serious mental, and I meant to mention this to him when we did ours, but I'm sure with technical difficulties we had and all the things that were going on with that I didn't really remember. I think there's some true power in actually being able to put a date in your mind to start something and commit to it, because clearly that's extremely hard. While forcing yourself right into it's probably the best option. If you can actually set that date and do what you're supposed to, I think that's really powerful, because it's something not a lot of people are actually able to do. So yeah, I told myself, day deer season's done, or rifle season anyway. I'm starting this program, and that's exactly what I did. I hunted all 14 days, day and night of rifle season, and I saw, like we mentioned with my dad on the first long form podcast episode 2, we saw 2 does and a button buck. So it's pretty miserable. I was extremely tired, and then I jumped into this extremely rigorous. It's more of a mental toughness program, but it's got a lot of physical aspects involved. So yeah, it was pretty intense, but it made it really easy to commit to. And I had already, that was the other nice part too about setting that date, was I'd already told everyone I was doing it. So I wasn't going to look like a clown and not actually commit to it, because everyone was expecting and anticipating my start of it once my deer season had ended. So yeah, I started 75 hard, and right out of the gate, I had a huge plateau. I think I was around like 186 pounds or so, and that lasted several weeks. So before, I'd been losing, consistently 2 pounds a week, but it was like 2+ pounds. Like the stuff was just falling off. So I think at the time I started 75 hard, I was like 193 pounds or so. And, I got to 186 pretty quick, like I had been, but 186 was like my number. Like I just could not come off of that. So I talked to Dylan, like, dude, this is, I'm messing something up. Like this is not working. I kind of think my body was in like survival mode or some kind of shock, because my calories were so low, and I was adding, 75 hard is 2 45-minute workouts a day. Which granted, like one of them, I was just doing some steady state cardio, but still, even that, I think that was putting me in such a deficit that my body said, whoa, what are we doing here? Something's not right. So he said, man, you gotta this is not good. You should probably up your water, and I would recommend upping your protein. So that next day, I said, okay, I'm gonna eat more. I'm just gonna force feed myself a little bit. But actually, it was kind of weird. We had that conversation like the day I started feeling really shitty. It was like a light switch that next day, and my appetite was just through the roof. So I think that next day, and I ended up eating like 27 to 2,800 calories, which again is not a lot of food. But you got to remember, I mean, eating all fat-based food. So uh, for me personally, it's really satiating, and it's so dense calorically that it really just cures any appetite that you might have. So I settled into, around 2,500 to 2,700 calories for probably a week or two. And then gradually started settling back down into about 2,000 to 2,200. And that was consistently every day. I kind of found that was my number that worked really good. Um, I don't know if I started this exactly when I started 75 hard, but pretty soon after I started fasting 16 to 18 hours every day. So I would get up and I don't remember I think I did my outdoor workout first. A lot of the, yeah, I think I did my outdoor workout first a lot of the time in the beginning. So I just get up, go outside. That's how I've always been, is like very task oriented, just get the hardest shit done first. And for me, it started getting cold outside. So I wanted to get that cold one out of the way as soon as I could. So I'd just go outside and I'd run or I'd hike, uh, some steady state, uh, just fast paced walking. Basically, we got a lot of hills in the subdivision I live in. So, I could get a good sweat going doing that. But yeah, so I do all of that fasted, and I kind of found that was the only way I could really work out is fasted. I do not do well with food in my gut while working out. So yeah, I mixed up the workouts a lot. Like some days I'd hit the bag, uh, you know, several different types of cardio, like I just mentioned. Fell in love with the bike. Um, did a lot of weightlifting. Uh, the thing about all my weightlifting is I've had a history of having a lot of injuries. So I tried to stay away from the bar a lot. So I was mostly doing dumbbell, kettlebell, body weight type weightlifting. And all that stuff worked really good for me. There wasn't really any workouts I struggled with. Um, did some cable machines and stuff like that too. But yeah, I kind of fell into a groove of loving to work out. I couldn't wait to go do it every day. Um, yeah. So, anyways, since my calories had been upped at that point, there were some additional foods that I had put into my diet, like just kind of snack foods, for when that hunger would kick in. Being that busy and active, uh, it's actually surprisingly kind of hard. You have to make time to eat, uh, and especially like on weekends and stuff when I would work. I worked 12 hours a day. You know, I got an hour in the car and two 45-minute workouts to deal with. So my time is pretty restricted. I gotta find a window to eat in, basically. Yeah, some of those foods, I don't know if I mentioned it. Pork rinds, cream cheese balls, string cheese, beef sticks. Just high fat foods that are quick and on the go. Uh, I'd say my favorites out of those were probably the cream cheese balls. I found these ones at Walmart. Man, my favorite part about them was, so the first time I had them, they tasted like absolute cardboard shit. They were disgusting. But they were only you could eat six of these giant cream cheese balls. It was only six carbs. So I'm like, fucking A. I'd eat a pack a day every day for like, I think it was like a month I did that. And I started realizing that got fucking expensive. 'Cause I think they were like $6 a piece. So I was committing to that every day. But it was super easy because they were so filling. So I'd eat my sausage and eggs, or probably about that time, I kind of got off eggs and just started doing sausage and bacon every day because my gut responded a lot better to that. The eggs kind of would upset my stomach sometimes, which is kind of weird because in the beginning I did just fine with them, but it was kind of something that I adapted with, or yeah, just kind of a negative adaptation at that time. Um, but yeah, so I'd eat my breakfast or whatever, and just gorge some cream cheese balls, and I'd be good for the day. Um, that was the other thing too. My quantities of food completely changed. So when I first started, I'd do like, I don't know, 4 strips of bacon, 2 pieces of sausage, or like 4 pieces of bacon and 4 to 6 eggs or so. Just something kind of usual like that. And then when I started training, I'd just, the numbers went through the roof. I'd eat like 10 to 12 pieces of bacon. And this is pretty much what I still do every day. Uh, so like 10 to 12 pieces of bacon, 4 thick sausage patties, and then I'd throw some eggs in there sometimes. Like it was a pretty big meal, which I've actually heard a few doctors talk about how um, like dinner should not be your largest meal of the day, which I wasn't really like planning to do. Like eat all the majority of my calories at breakfast, but that's just what I found I did best with, like being fasted or whatever. I'm a big dude, and I've been a big dude for a long time because I love to eat. So when that meal window came, it was time to chow the fuck down. Um, yeah, so I did that consistently every day for probably the first month, and then I found my time frame on the weekends was just so limited that I was having to make food to take to work and heat up meals and all that, carry it back. I just got sick of that. So I said, I'm pretty hungry after, with all this training and whatnot. I could probably do a 24-hour fast. And so the last portion of, last half pretty much of 75 hard, that's what I started doing on the weekends when I worked. I'd eat, like I said, 10 to 12 pieces of bacon, 4 sausage, and then one of my carnivore slash keto creations I learned about was a chaffle, which is basically a cheese and egg waffle. So you take a half cup of mozzarella, and the recipe only calls for 1 egg, whisk it, and put it in a waffle iron. But for some reason, I don't know if it's just my junk waffle iron. Uh, I could not get it set up like that. So I started putting 2 eggs in it, and it worked fine. So I do, a chaffle or two, which that's kind of the crazy part about those. Like for what they are, they're kind of calorically dense. They're probably like 350 calories or so ish, having 2 eggs and half cup of cheese in them. And surprisingly, they're filling too. Like I had bought keto waffles before, and they were just like eating through paper. Like we're not very satiating. We're not filling. Like it just, I was not a fan. So that's kind of been always my thing with this is like I'm not going to eat anything that I don't feel is doing anything for me. But when I found these, they're great, and it's a giant waffle. And yeah, so I would just eat that, and sometimes I'd throw in those, in the very beginning, I think when I started the 24-hour fast, I'd throw in those cream cheese balls. That was honestly probably the most filling food that I would use for these 24-hour fasts. Sometimes I'd eat as many as 9 of them, just because they were that filling, and I would feel miserable afterwards, but I would not need food for the rest of the day, um, which was great. But yeah, I stopped buying those things just because the cost, it was just not worth it. I could make more chaffles and get by on those. That's the other thing I haven't really talked about too much with this is like the cost of your food. Like, yeah, it seems pretty expensive buying all this meat, as much as I am. But you're not buying all the other filler crap foods that don't do anything for you. Like you're not buying chips that you just burn through, in a day. Or I was disgusting and would buy a box of cookies or a packaged cookies and literally eat them the first night I got them. You know? like just stuff like that. Like what you're eating is actually going to stay with you, where you're not going to have to eat as many items, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. So yeah, it's kind of expensive, but so is diabetes and heart disease and all the other things that are going to kill you from eating like shit too. So yeah, I finished the 75 hard program and felt like an absolute fucking animal. Mentally tougher, more physically fit than I've ever been in my entire life. Um, and then my first rest day, I lost 3 pounds immediately. And I don't know if that was just my body saying, "Hey man, we're done," or what. But those, you know, further I got into the program, the harder it got to lose weight, um, which is to be expected. Because I've gotten pretty lean, honestly. Like my upper abdominals are like super defined now, but I still got like just a little bit of lower belly fat over the lower two. Um, and some of it could be skin too. I don't really know. I got stretch marks everywhere else and whatnot, so maybe that's it. I haven't done a body scan or anything. I absolutely hate doing shit like that. I don't like going anywhere. Like I'm a mountain man at heart. Uh, I do not like going to the doctor or making appointments or walking into places. That is not me. I'm so antisocial, introverted. It's amazing that I can even do these podcasts. But yeah, my training now, I don't know how many weeks removed I am. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks or so. 3 weeks, something like that. Anyways, I do three workouts a week. So I'll do I'll get on the bike, 10-minute warm up, whatever, and then do all upper body. That's kind of the weird part I found. I heard a lot of people saying like do curls or something for a warm up because it's hard to get a leg muscle fired up. Man, I get on that bike. That's my warm up for every workout. I just get a good sweat going. It doesn't tax me too much. I find that that's the best thing for me. I've tried warming up with other stuff, and it's just kind of painful, honestly, because it's hard to loosen up with that much exertion. Whereas that thing's super low resistance, you can just sweat and get all the heat in your muscles. I found that to be great. But yeah, so I'll do one day upper body, and it's not specific. Like I'll do chest, back, arms, all of it. Like it's not real cut out. And I'm pretty much consistently still walking several miles a day, so I'm getting a little bit of cardio in there too. Then yeah, I'll do the same thing, but I'll do a longer warm up on the bike. Like so, my upper body's only like 10 minutes. Lower body will be 15 to 30 minutes, just depending on what I'm feeling that day, and then go lift legs. And then I'll do a day that's all cardio and abs. So I'll go run and super long walks, hike, all that. This entire time I've just really tried to go off how my body's feeling for my workouts. Just it's really important to commit to it mentally. But at the same time, I'm really longevity focused. Like I want to be doing the stuff I like to do for a really long time. So I'm not, trying to crush any records or anything. I'm just more about committing myself to doing it. What I'm experimenting with right now is like where to put in the rest days. So I'm starting with just doing 3 workouts in a row. And then I do my 3 days of work, which I walk, sometimes up to 10 miles at work a day. So that's what I found is really important, just the rest days on my work days, because my knees, we wear uniform, and I've got tools and stuff on me sometimes, steel toe work boots. Like I found my knees and my feet just get really exhausted. So I'm definitely going to keep the rest days for when I work probably, but as far as sprinkling workouts throughout the week, I don't know if I want to incorporate a rest day in between one of them somewhere, but I'm feeling pretty good right now. I'd probably just stick to the 3 days in a row. And I'm shooting my bow a lot more now and stuff like that too. But yeah, feeling great. Diet wise, tried to do a little experimentation too. Added, so I'd eat, I guess I kind of missed this a little bit. Like the entire month of January, I basically kind of just followed the carnivore route. And that's what I found basically works best for me. I just eat, you know, sausage, bacon, burger patties, and then eggs and cheese. A lot of people don't consider cheese as carnivore, but I do because it's animal product. But anyways, yeah. So I guess I kind of got too caught up in it, kind of forgot to mention that. So yeah, I started at like what we'd call low carb, and then transitioned into keto, and now I'm basically full carnivore, just to put that in a better explanation. But yeah, so then I was like, okay, well, I'm not eating really anything outside of, meat products. So let me experiment with fruit, because my mind always goes back to like the natural world. And I've talked about this, or it might be kind of obvious just from some of the other podcasts I've done. My mind's really oriented in that way. Like, how are we supposed to be living? And so I'm thinking to myself, like, these hunter-gatherer societies that have been, very common throughout history. Like, if they saw a piece of fruit, and they hadn't killed anything in a while, they're probably gonna, eventually over time learn which ones of these they can utilize for energy. They're in a low success period with their hunting. So I tried, I think a banana was the first thing. I did this for 4 days. I tried, I think it was split 2 and 2. So 2 days were banana and 2 days were an apple. First day with banana, my stomach was completely destroyed. Um, I think so. I think the first 2 days went banana, apple, both days, stomach destroyed. So then I did an apple again. Stomach was fine, felt good, tasted good. I didn't have. You'll hear a lot of people, they get like a sugar rush when they do a pretty much primarily ketogenic or carnivore diet. Sugar just makes them crash, basically. They like turn like or go like narcoleptic, basically. That wasn't me. I felt fine and was able to had mental clarity that I normally had. Yeah, the fourth day I ate a banana again. My stomach was just destroyed, and I said, okay, fruit ain't for me. So I completely cut that shit out. One thing that's kind of interesting though, I found in the beginning a weird response to caffeine. That I just did not feel. It had me like way too tense. And I never really felt like that before. I pretty much always consume caffeine. I love coffee. I drank tea all the time growing up. But yeah, so I pretty much cut that completely out of my diet from September through beginning of February. Like, very limited maybe one. I had 1 cup of coffee in my entire weight loss journey. Yeah, that's not something I really utilized. But what I found from carnivore was I started having a lot of tough time going to the bathroom. So I thought, man, what's something I could utilize to help with the digestion? And coffee, I think we obviously all know what that does to your gut. So yeah, I've been drinking 1 to 2 cups of coffee a day, and I've got some sugar-free creamer that I put in it. It's like less than 1 gram of carb per serving. I don't measure it. I did measure it in the beginning, and then I said, okay, let's experiment. And I wasn't measuring it, and I still lost like some weight. So just yeah, I'm not real big on counting anything anymore either. I don't, consistently throughout that September to February zone, I was pretty much tracking my calories every single day. And I really got away from that now. I know what to eat, and I know how certain things affect me. So, I'm really in tune with my body. I know which days I need to eat more and which days if I need to fast longer and stuff like that. So I don't measure stuff unless it's for recipes, and I don't count calories. I know I'm consistently sticking around that what they talk about for ketogenic state, which is like 70% fat and like 25% protein and 5% or less carbs. But yeah, literally coffee creamer is the only carbohydrates I'm consuming. So not real worried about it. But yeah, I'm doing great with that. And it's very satiating. I love the taste of coffee. Um, Not black coffee, but definitely coffee with creamer in it. Tastes pretty good. Um, yeah, so I'm feeling great. And yeah, I think just my big point I got here at the bottom is like it's super important to find a passion, and go after that, because if I hadn't found like all this hunting and this traveling stuff, these Western hunts, different styles of hunting, spot and stalk, this more rigorous physical style of hunting, uh, I might have died a lot sooner than I'm going to. It's hard to say in speculation. Find a passion that, has capabilities of possibly saving your life, basically, is what I'm trying to get at. There's a lot of terrible information out there about health, um, nutrition, exercise, all that. I mean, it's a joke right now. It's probably pretty obvious, but we're living in just what I want to say, a space that's full of lies, and it's usually for someone else's gain, like the food industry. The food industry brings in a ridiculous amount of money each year, and a lot of that's through agriculture. Now, I've basically lived around or in rural farming communities my entire life, but I'm starting to see a lot of flaws in what's going on with those. Like I support, obviously the hardworking man and the guy that's been carrying on the family tradition for however many years. Like we have so many family friends and stuff that are farmers. But at the same time, the bigger picture, I have to also consider what it's doing to people. Like we've only started consuming grain in the way that we do now in the last 200 years. And I think it's kind of just simply because it's that, people realize that it was a cheap way to feed masses of people. And so now they freaking market the hell out of that, because they realize how much money they're actually able to make from that. I had looked at the statistic one day. Literally, the money that's made in from agriculture and the food industry each year is enough to pretty much provide like universal health care. So that's insane because we're more obese than we've ever been. I think now we're sitting around like 40 something percent. No, is it 40 or I think it's 40% obese in our country, which is insane. That pretty much every other person you look at is guaranteed to be obese. So it's really hard to convince me that, we should be eating a lot of these things. I know I talked about it in the last podcast. Like I don't eat vegetables, which really irritates a lot of people. Because we've always, there's so many industry lies that we've been hearing this whole time. Like breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Uh, there's so many benefits from like doing the fasting and stuff that I've been doing. Eat your vegetables. One thing that's scientifically been proving is that plants are becoming much more adept to things eating them. So, in other words, they're producing chemicals that are toxic to us so that we don't eat them. That's the thing a lot of people can or get confused with on plants, like fruits. They grow big and bright because they're designed to, so they want things to eat them so that seeds end up getting spread, whether that's through your digestive system or carrying them off or whatever that ends up being, I guess. But vegetables are not like that. They don't want to be eaten. They will adapt and grow spikes and thorns and toxins and all kinds of stuff so that you don't eat them. But at the same time, you hear people saying, eat your vegetables, which I'm sure there's some benefit to it, some vitamins and stuff they make a big deal about. But high quality meat, it's really hard to convince me that you can't get everything you need from, um, animal based food products. Some people argue about certain vitamins, stuff like that, like, vitamin C and a couple other things. But I've seen studies now, they're saying that you really don't even need vitamin C if you don't eat carbohydrates. So my point in going down this rabbit hole was just saying be very cautious of the lies you're being sold about your health and nutrition. Do a lot of research on your own. I understand that a lot of people might tolerate carbohydrates better than I do, but does that mean you're necessarily designed to be consuming them? I guess is what I'm trying to get at. We've got a long history of eating the way I do, and it's working really good for me. I'm a completely different person, mentally, physically. Um, there's so many benefits that have been brought to my life from making these nutritional changes. And now I guess they're physical too, because I'm doing the kind of training and stuff that I'm doing now. But yeah, I just encourage you to find something that you love so much that you're willing to, or just find something that something you love to do that has a focus on your health. Because I know I wrote this down on the other side here that uh, I've always been oriented in the way that I've had to have something, like had to have something to work towards, basically. So like for me, it's always been some kind of passion to get me going. So I remember, like, I don't think I touched on this, but a conversation with my dad when I was a teenager, and I was working like 3 jobs at the time. And I told him, "Do you know like why I'm doing this?" And he's like, "Of course I know why you're doing this. It's that car we're building over there." You're exactly right. Like, and that's kind of just always the way I've been. Is I've just needed a passion to push me to better myself. And so that's how I'm going to wrap this up. Basically, is saying I think it's really important to find your own version of that. Whether we talked to Dylan, his is jujitsu and UFC stuff. Uh, and he's completely changed his life because of that. For me, it's hunting. For you, it might be something completely different. So I just encourage you to do that, and definitely consider the stuff you're putting into your body. I'm sure I'll talk a lot more on this, and just thanks for tuning in.